So the Leafs are in every trade rumor right now. You have Kadri coming back to Toronto. You got Rielly moving his no trade clause, or at least being asked to move his no trade clause. Brandon Carlo already being flipped. And none of this, by the way, is confirmed. But there definitely is something brewing in Toronto. So let's take a look at what's being said. So over at Sportsnet, Nick Kypreos released another one of his trade boards. This time, he had Nazem Kadri on the list. And he did mention that there are two teams who Kadri is willing to move his no trade clause for. The Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens. Now, if you don't know, Kadri's got 4 years remaining on his deal at $7 million per and a no move that runs until 25-26. And the guy who signed him to this deal and brought him over to Calgary is now the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brad Treliving. Now, Kadri to Toronto makes sense. It does. It fills a need. You need a second line center. He can play in the middle six. Him and Tavares can maybe switch between 2 and 3C or vice versa, however you want to do it. The Leafs need another center. There's no doubt about that. But once you start throwing in the numbers and what's involved, it doesn't make sense for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They just made a trade for Dakota Joshua. So now, according to Puckpedia, they have $2.93 million and change left over in cap space. So they got to move some players out, which is likely going to happen. Probably Calle Jarnkrok, David Kampf, and who knows who else. Maybe Max Domi goes out. Maybe Brandon Carlo, we'll get to him, or even Morgan Rielly. But if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, does it make sense to bring in a 35-year-old player that's making $7 million per year? And to make this trade happen, what is Calgary going to want? Like, they're not going to give you Kadri for free. I think it's unlikely that they retain any salary. I mean, maybe they will. You might have to get a third team involved. So picks are going out the door. If Calgary's looking to rebuild or continue this rebuild/retool, they're going to want players who can play now and obviously prospects. Maybe that's an Easton Cowan. Is Brad Treliving willing to give that up right now for Nazem Kadri, who's still a good player? He's putting up really good points. And in the playoffs, he can perform, as we've seen with the Colorado Avalanche. The guy left Toronto and won a cup. Hasn't been back since. Well, since he moved to Calgary, hasn't been in the playoffs, but still. He is a player that makes sense in Berube's system. Hard-nosed guy, two-way forward, and fills a void. And he's going to get you, 60 to 70 points a season, unless that decline starts happening relatively soon, which could. Listen, if there's no such thing as a cap, and it was the baseball model where the Leafs can just pay like a luxury tax, this makes a whole lot of sense. But I just don't see it happening. And it makes sense for Treliving to be sniffing around because that's what he seems to do. He seems to have his finger on the pulse of everything that's going on in the league. So it's not surprising that he would want this type of player. I just don't understand how the deal and the money makes sense unless they're getting it retained, like I mentioned. But whatever you're sending out the door, I think is too much for an older player, even though you're in this win now window with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Another Toronto Maple Leaf on this list is Morgan Rielly. And what makes this one a bit strange is that he has 5 years left at $7.5 million per. But what makes it complicated is that he has a full no move clause. So it's up to him. You can approach him and ask him to move. If he says no, he's staying. You can make it uncomfortable for him, but that's just a horrible situation for the player and the team and the locker room. But apparently, according to Kypreos, this conversation has been had. And the feedback, which he mentions here, is that it's not going to happen at this particular time. So according to Kypreos, who mentioned this on a radio show, there has been a conversation. It's just not happening right now. Listen, does it make sense to move on from Morgan Rielly off of the back of last season? Maybe. I mean, moving Rielly, if it were to happen, that shocks the room. That's a change in DNA that Brad Treliving is talking about. I really don't see it happening. But if you can make it happen, then it's likely you can get somebody in the top six. You need another scoring winger. You need another centerman. And if Rielly's willing to move, you can probably get that in that deal. And finally, Brandon Carlo also on this list. And I've talked about him before. And I would hate to see him go because, listen, he's a right-handed shot, which is super valuable. 6'4", just 28 years old. And look at his cap number. 2 years remaining at 3.8. He's got a modified no trade. I believe it's an 8-team no trade. So you can move him pretty easily if you really wanted to. Like, I don't love the idea of moving Carlo, but if it means bringing in a real scoring winger who fits with this new core, then you have to explore it. I mean, the Leafs don't have a lot of trade chips. They really don't. This is one of them, and this is one that they can move because he doesn't have a full no move, no trade. Like, it's right there for them if they want to move Brandon Carlo. It's just unfortunate that it's him because I think he can be a big piece for this team for the next 2 seasons moving forward. Like, he came in from Boston, hit the ground running. He actually helped improve Morgan Rielly's game. His game got better playing beside Brandon Carlo. But listen, these are the things you have to look at when you're trying to make trades and improve your team. Who can we move and who can't we move? And Carlo's a guy they can move. All right, Leaf fans, talk to me in the comments below. Does making a move for Nazem Kadri make sense for this Leafs team? Would you be willing to move on from Carlo? And what do you think about Morgan Rielly being asked to move his no trade? Does that affect anything within the locker room or within that organization? Let me know in the comments below.